Man.
It's good to see you, man.
You too.
I'm sitting here next to Sky.
Hey.
Hi, Sky.
So next to Sky and next to Aiden.
Hey,
and
Oh, I don't know Aiden.
Yeah, he's this good guy that you probably would like.
Hi, Aiden.
I am also joined by my bananas. See the bananas?
By your bananas.
Got
I'm
some
joined by many things, including this guy. Hello.
That's amazing. Is that a cat?
No, it's a raccoon.
Too bad, Joe Sutphin. Okay, let me add Chris. See if we can hear him.
Hey,
All
guys.
right. Hey, there he is. How's it going?
Sorry, I had my other window watching the short, and it screwed up the audio.
Hey, everybody. So we can see your comments in the side thing. I figured we would just talk for just a few minutes until we start seeing some questions. And if you guys can kind of keep an eye on questions too, we can.
I've got a few logged in that I jotted down during the live stream on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. So can I make some introductions really quick? We've got in the middle of your screen, we've got Mr. Joe Sutphin. Joe is my good friend, and he lives in Ohio and on some property, and he and his wife are wonderful people. And we met a few years before I published The Warden and the Wolf King. I think we met online, and I just loved Joe's work. And at the time, Aiden was probably 12 or something. I don't even know. But we would geek out over the artists that we found online. And we saw Joe's website and just loved what he was doing. So when it came time to kickstart the fourth book, which gave us the budget to hire an illustrator to like fill it with drawings, Joe answered the call and just shaped so much of the story. I remember there were certain creatures that you drew that actually gave me ideas for things that were going to happen, like subplots.
Yeah. Like Cadwick, I think, was one of them.
Yes. Cadwick.
I drew a Cloven that was kind of a centaur kind of guy, and
yep.
I think he was blind. I don't remember how he ended up in the book, but
yeah, he wasn't blind in the book, but he does look kind of blindish in the picture. But
yeah, and then I drew some really weird pictures of Nag where he was like kind of treating Cloven really poorly and writing them like a vehicle, and you kind of threw that into the book.
Totally, yeah. Your imagination just kind of ran wild. So thankful that you could be with us. And we also have Mr. Chris Wall.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris Wall, wearing your Wingfeather Saga shirt.
Boom.
Represent. And Chris and I met years ago thanks to Slugs and Bugs and Lullabies. He was producing 321 Penguins and VeggieTales, working for Big Idea. And Randall Goodgame and I released this Slugs and Bugs and Lullabies CD. And it made its way to you. To your wife first, and then he ended up. That led to Randall and I writing a few VeggieTales songs, and then we've been friends ever since. And I feel like I've been bugging you for 6 or 7 years to like say, hey, we should make a Wingfeather movie. Hey, we should make a Wingfeather movie, and then we did. So, do you want to talk about how that all happened, Chris Wall?
Oh man, yeah. Well, Andrew handed me this book. I have the old. I'm sorry, the back cover's missing, but this very tattered version that's been read and reread by our family. Lots of times. And I just saw this. I just thought it was so great. It says, for Chris, who loves stories from you. And so Andrew handed me this when the first one was published and was like, hey, check this out. And I was like, oh, you wrote a book. That's nice. And read it as our family. We have 6 children. And we my older 3. And we read along the whole series and loved it. And so then we got to, it was 2015. Andrew had the idea, hey, what if we did a Kickstarter and made some, raised some money that way and could do a little short film with this. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. People won't, they love the books, but they won't want to do, that kind of thing. And I was wrong. We had over 3,000 people that helped us make that short film that you all just got to see. And it was an amazing process. It's been asked a few times, but we spent about a year in production making the thing. But that was largely because we were they had this amazing animation studio here in Nashville called Magnetic Dreams that was kind of helping us along because we didn't quite have enough money to do as much as we wanted to do. Our eyes were bigger than our our dollars. And so they helped us, but we had to kind of fit between projects. And so it kind of got stretched out a little bit, which was great. I think, I know we were pretty thankful afterwards because we get to think about things a lot longer, about what we really wanted in certain spots and how we wanted to do things. So, yeah, about a year of that.
Well, one of the big questions that I'm seeing come up again and again. So one of the big questions that people ask whenever you make a film out of a book is, why did you change this? And why did you change that? And why isn't this the same as this? So we I'll kind of give a blanket statement, and then Chris, if you want to speak to that, you can, and then we'll circle around to Joe to talk about some of the illustrations he did for the new book. Film is a very, very different medium than books. Books allow you to get inside the heads of the characters, and you can stretch your legs in a book in a way that you can't do in a film. So we were limited in many, many ways, which I think limitations are great for an artist. That's when your imagination kind of kicks into high gear because you've got to solve problems. And we looked at this story, this 4 books long, and tried to figure out how in the world do we make a short film with basically $150,000 is what we had to work with after we filled all the orders and made the shirts like the one.
Made shirts.
And so how do you create a mini episode, a little short 15-minute snippet that, because this wasn't just for fans, it was also for us to pitch to studios as a way of saying it will give you, in 15 minutes, this will give you an idea of the kind of story that we're trying to tell here. It'll introduce you to the characters. It'll introduce you to the town. It'll kind of hint at like what kind of world they live in, and will also leave you wanting more. Will end with you wanting to know what's going to happen next. And so every single character. So Joe Sutphin, if you sit down to draw a creature like you did in the Warden and the Wolf King, you can just do whatever you want. And if I say, "Ooh, let's add that to the story," it costs $0. All it is time for me to just make Nag the Nameless look different, or add a character named Elder Cadwick. Whereas in a film, like, how long, Chris, does it take to animate Slarb, for example? Like, what goes into Slarb?
Yeah, so Slarb has to be created, right? So we have to actually make a design for him, a drawing first to start with. So someone like Joe, in this case it was Nicholas Cole, draws him. And then we have to figure out what he looks like in 3D, like we have to in space. And then we have to build a skeleton for him. And then we have to build a skin for him. And then we have to paint him. And then we have to figure out how he moves, and if his fangs can come out of his mouth, or if they're going to go through things. There's all kinds of making it work like on a clay model that we have to do. And so it takes a very long time, and a number of different professionals that do that kind of work. And so once you're done with all of that, I think for each of our characters, it was about a 2-month process from design, getting them into 3D, finding the right shapes, because when you would go from 2D to 3D where they can move around, the shapes would get weird, and the characters wouldn't look right. We'd have to kind of work them up again, and then getting them colored, and then getting them to move right. Yeah, it's quite a thing.
So thousands of dollars and months of time just to make one character. So we were limited by how many characters can be in this short film. Like, we couldn't animate everybody. We couldn't animate Oscar, for example. That's why Oscar doesn't show up in person. And the way we solved that problem, as you may have noticed, is that Oscar was in the basement of Books and Crannies, and there was a little tube that wound through that Jenner was talking into, and it showed a picture of him. So we were able to hint at the fact that Oscar was there without having to spend 2 months and thousands of dollars and lots of people animating him. So those were some of the things that went through. And so it would have been we couldn't animate Zuzab, for example. So we needed the moment where the Slarb gets hit by the rock, and it was like, it's just cleaner to make it Pete all along. And there were also things that when we did it, I was like, wow, I wish I had done that in the book. That's actually a better way to tell the story. So things aren't going to be exactly the same. Does that make sense? So, and then the last thing I would say, a lot of people have been asking about, why did we call him Kalmar and not Tink? Kalmar is his real name, and that gets mentioned in On the Edge of the Dark Sea of Darkness. There's actually a big character arc that Tink/Kalmar goes on, and the difference in his names that is significant. And so, but that was too confusing for this story, and Tink wasn't as cool of a name as Kalmar. So we called him Kalmar. So little decisions like that, we just had to streamline a lot of things. Now, if we ended up making, say, a series out of this, chances are we would be able to stretch out and dig deeper into book one and stick a little closer to what the story is. But even so, there's things that just don't work on a screen that do work on a book.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, introducing two different character names in a short 15-minute window gets tough. I will tell you, fans, that we had a lot of debate about that because a lot of us really like the Tink name and whether we should use that or if it's too confusing to call him Tink, then Cal, then Kalmar. It's too many names, and so you are thinking about simplifying. But I think on your note, though, Andrew, about adaptation, one of the things when you're thinking about another format, and we just finished, our sweet family did a read aloud over winter of Lord of the Rings, and then got the payoff of getting to see the films. And it was interesting for the kids watching, my younger guys, particularly who are 9, or 8, 11, and 13, that is adaptation. And adaptation hopefully creates a fresh experience. So everybody that just got to go through with Andrew, having gone through the book just now, hopefully when you watch the short film, it was a fresh experience for you. That's what you want to do in adaptation. If it's note for note and it's every single thing that can get a little wearisome. You want to make it fresh. And so there are some things that you somewhat intentionally decide, let's do this a little differently. Let's play this way. It's true to the kind of intent of the story and the characters. You don't want to break those, but also making it a fresh experience. So for people coming new they've never seen or don't know Wingfeather at all, which was certainly another lens, which was like, okay, if they've never read these books, they don't know anything about it, and they press play, does it make sense? Right? So you have to kind of work through any shorthand that you're using that made sense in the book but doesn't make sense here, that kind of thing. And then the second is for people that have read the books and maybe love them, is this a fresh experience? Are they having fun, kind of getting to see their characters come to life, and do things that maybe are a little different than the book and maybe surprise them a little bit? I certainly hope that we did that.
Yeah, I think so. So before we get to the questions, Joe.
Yeah.
Do you have can you give us a quick walkthrough of what it's like for you to illustrate, what it was like for you to illustrate the new books? Like, what's your process? How did you decide what pictures to draw? How did that all go down?
Yeah. I think I really cut my teeth on when we did the book for the first time. So that was really kind of me learning a lot. But by the time that we had redone all the books, I had probably illustrated maybe 25 books between Warden and the Wolf King and the complete series. So I had really spent a lot of time learning how to make books and be more efficient. And I think our time frame was a lot shorter to get 4 books done. So I needed to figure out how to really make nice art in a shorter amount of time, and not, because that was like we talked about this for so long. It's like a once in a lifetime chance. We're gonna re-release these whole books, the whole series. Like, I think like 4 or 5 years ago, you texted me and said, I think we're gonna re-release the whole series. So it took a long time to get there, but I just went through, since we were only going to be able to do like 10 or so per book, I had to kind of go through, however many 90 chapters or whatever, and figure out like, where do we pace these out so that the reader is really getting an even flow of art from beginning to end, and then making sure that those moments are really fun moments where the art is maybe helping somebody see something that is hard to imagine in their mind, or maybe helping them. Maybe it's somebody who's read the book 20 times and they've just never gotten to see certain things. For me, it was actually kind of cool because hopefully I didn't make anybody mad, but I got to take a series that has been around forever and completely design characters in ways that I thought they looked good. But with regard to a lot of like the Fangs and the main characters, a lot of them, Nicholas did such a good job of already, like, he had designed them in different ways than I had designed them before. And I think that they just fit so well with the covers that I tried to pay more respect to the way that he designed things and keep them like in that vein. So you can see like the Poto that I did is way different than the Poto from 7 or 8 years ago or whatever that was. So yeah, I mean, I just started off by doing pencil sketches of everything and kind of texting you and saying, hey, what do you think about these? And if you usually you just say cool.
Yeah, I'm just a fanboy, so I only speak up when I don't like something.
Yeah, you're kind of like the easiest client that I could possibly have because you always like everything. So,
easy. Well, that's the advantage of working with awesome people. Seriously.
Yeah. So then once you were happy with them, I just kind of transferred them to a clean board and redrew them and inked them, and I used a little bit of a different technique this time. I had used a technique that I did with Glenn McCarty's Tumbleweed book, where I was kind of paying homage to like Robert McCloskey doing kind of designing across the pages and stuff. I felt like since we had such thick books and only 10 illustrations, that if we were to use up an illustration on 2 pages as much as possible, then people were going to feel like they were getting more art. So I think
you killed it. Their drawings are amazing. Do you have anything there with you that you can show us?
I can go grab some originals. I actually don't have copies of the books yet.
I'm gonna just say this one, Joe. This one is so stinking cool.
A great
drawing. So good. I would love to enter a bookshop where you walk along and then suddenly there's a face. You know, that just makes me so happy.
So Chris, let me. I can actually like display questions that are going to show up.
Yeah, I've got a whole list that I was keeping over here.
Yeah.
So Andrew, they've asked a few times, who's your favorite character?
Who's my favorite character? I don't know. I don't have a favorite character, but I like all of them. Even some of the bad guys. They were fun to write. But I think the obvious ones for me are I love Sarah Cobbler. Partly because she was a total surprise. I didn't realize that she was going to become a character that would have a key role in the story. And a little fun side note is my editor, when I was working on book 1, I had written chapter 1 where the janitor's laying in bed and he hears the black carriage coming, and she told me, my editor wrote a note back that said, hey, I feel like you should flesh this out a little bit more. Maybe have Janitor remember hearing that a kid got taken by the black carriage. So I just made up the name Sarah Cobbler and wrote that she had been taken by the black carriage. And then by book 2, which we're going to get there soon, you guys, I had begun to think about who is Sarah Cobbler? I wonder what happened to her. And so she became one of my favorites. And then Pete the Sock Man, his story arc is a blast for me to experience too.
So I'll answer that. For me, it was Janner, but not until book 2. Janner, like in book 1, I was like, oh, okay, he's fine. But in book 2, as he starts to kind of grow into his role, I just love that guy. And of course, ultimately, he's just such a great character for me.
Thank you. What about you, Joe? Do you have a favorite character?
Favorite character?
Yeah, I think that I think mine has always been Poto. Because he kind of has like a little bit of like a John Carter mystique to him, like super like chivalrous, like just good to the core. And also because like way back when we were doing the original book 4, you gave me a few like ideas of like who to keep in mind, and I remember Robert Duvall was the guy that we talked about for him, and I could never get Robert Duvall out of my head, and he's just such an awesome actor that I just always thought of Poto that way. So
that's awesome.
Hard to not like him after that.
Yeah, Robert Duvall as Gus McCrae in Lonesome Dove was the cowboy version of Poto in my mind. Yeah.
Not Robert Duvall as Boo Radley as Poto.
Although that would have been pretty cool too. So any other, let me see what we got here.
Did you get some drawings there?
I do have I just realized I was like digging through the whole stack of all 4 books and thought, I can't share those.
Hey, no spoilers.
Yeah. And I've got a vertical screen there, so it's hard.
Without all the words messing it up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
You probably haven't seen these yet, Andrew.
I haven't seen those. Those are
going to be in the book.
Cool.
I love how big they are.
Some of this was kind of fun fun to play
Yeah.
around with those ideas.
Did you draw these by on paper or digital?
These are all done by hand. So
Oh, that's awesome.
just using pens and these sepia colored pencils. Yeah, I clean them up digitally. I scan them in really high res and then clean them up digitally. Here's the bookshop.
Oh, what a great draw. That's so nice of you to give me that one.
Yeah, it was. Actually, I gave you some really nice ones. There were some that I gave you that are some of my favorites, actually, but we can't really talk about because they're like much farther in the series. But they're really exciting things that people have never got to see before. That's one of the funnest things about picking the art is what can I do that people have never got to see other than in their mind. This one right here was actually one that I did while Aiden was here working with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the illustration I was working on that week.
You're sitting right here drawing? Yes, that Aiden.
Do you mean that, Aiden?
Well, yeah, that Peterson kid.
Joe has been a mentor to Aiden over the years. Oh, that's a great one.
In some ways, Aiden's so awesome. He mentors me on how to be a better person.
Those are so great, Joe.
Yeah.
I just love that you do things old school. I love that it's not.
Yeah, that's really cool.
There we go.
Oh yeah, there's Nugget and
there it is.
That was a fun thought. You know, kind of I of course took a little of my inspiration for Nugget from good old Moondog. And
yeah, we had a sweet dog named Moondog.
yeah, he's a good boy.
That's so great. Okay, so
hey,
yeah.
Andrew, I have a special guest actually that I wanted to roll in here. Hey, everybody, so this is my son Elijah. Come on in here, big guy.
Elijah.
So Elijah got to play Kalmar.
Whoa.
So he got to be afraid of the
I think his
Fang.
voice is very different now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a couple of years. So one of the things we talked about when we made this short film was we really wanted to have kids, right, as the voices, kind of like Charlie Brown. And so I recorded early on with Elijah and his sister Charlotte, who will come by in a little bit, and we loved their voices. They were like just genuine kid voices, and of course, you get to hear them all during the short.
That's so
We
good.
watched the film together. So there you go.
Oh, that's good.
And then
Yeah.
Chris, you were Janner.
And I played Danner.
Which
Yeah,
is so funny that the dad and the son were brothers in the movie.
yeah, exactly. We're playing.
Pay attention. I didn't realize that Chris did Janner's voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good thing,
For some reason,
Yeah.
I thought it was your older son, Chris, that did his voice.
David. Yeah. No, we actually cast a couple other kids that had, but it was interesting with Elijah's voice. We loved his kind of raspiness and just where that sounded. And when we cast the other kids but they sounded too much like Elijah, and they weren't old enough. And Jenner has to be a little bit older to believe that the peril he's being put into, that he's has some ability to have some agency in protecting the siblings.
Yeah.
And so we just kept coming back to my temp voice that I put in there. And I've done a lot of acting in animation too. So, we had kind of delivered the way we wanted Jenner to sound that way. And then it ultimately just decided to stay with it for this.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I mean, I think, on a series or movie, we would definitely want a kid playing that.
I think so too. But I think that I should do the voice of Oscar doing the.
Oh, yeah. So that was a long discussion.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. We went
Yeah.
round about that.
Round and round trying to find this really interesting voice. And we just kept going back to Andrew's really bad British.
Happy to comply. Yeah, and Steve Taylor was Pete the Sock Man, which is super cool for you. Chris.
Yeah, musician Steve Taylor.
Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Elijah. Good to see you, dude.
See you, buddy. Hey, Andrew. So another one of the questions on here is about whether live action versus animation and some of the talks we had about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love animation. That's for starters. I'm a huge fan of a story that I don't know. It can do stuff to your imagination that live action doesn't do. Aiden is actually an animation major, partly due to the fact that we spent so much time watching good movies when the kids were little. But I think it's also a budget thing. I think that it's like I feel like it would be easier to go wrong making a live action movie than with animation. I don't know. I feel like it would be just this massive amount of money that it's just a tall order. So
one of the things I would say, Andrew, for me on the live action versus animation is that when I read the books with our family and just kind of our experience with this was that you left so many things on the fringes that were not fully detailed, but you knew there was something around the corner. There's clearly story that continues off the page into other things. And that kind of, for me, lent itself to animation because of its abstract artistic nature, that there's things that are defined on screen, but there's clearly things that are happening. And that was also what drew us to the production design, in kind of making things more abstract, where you can actually see painters' brushes. Yeah. And Nicholas Cole really drove that, who's our production designer. And animation allows you to do that. It allows your imagination to engage and kind of fill out the world in ways that a lot of times live action doesn't. Yeah. And so that really kind of, for me, was what made animation more attractive, Yeah.
Let me try something really quick. I can highlight questions. Check that out. How did the writing approach change over the course of the 4 books? Thanks for the question, Delton and Charity Lehman. How did the writing approach change? I don't know that the approach changed, but I just got less bad at it as I went. And so the only way to learn to write is to write. And just like the only way to learn to draw is to draw. The only way to learn to make movies is to make movies. And so book 1, it was really fun rereading it. It wasn't. I enjoyed rereading it, but the whole time I was like, I can't wait till we get to book 2. Can't wait till we get to book 3 and 4. And so I think it's not that the approach changed, but there were things when I was reading book 1 aloud last week that I was like, I don't think I would have done this or that when by the time I got to book 4. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but let me see what else we got here.
I got one for you. How close, Andrew, would you follow the production? Obviously, in this one, you followed very closely. But how close would you follow adapting to series or to a movie?
I think with a series, I would push really hard to follow it. Like if the short film was like a 75%, faithful rendition of the first chunk of book 1, I would push for more like a 90% faithful rendition in a series. Like I would say, we've got time in a series to take little rabbit trails and spread out. One of my favorite things about the film and about book 1 is how much time is taken showing like the domestic life of the Igby family. Like it took a long time and a lot of money to animate the breakfast scene in the movie. You know what I mean? Like Aiden actually made the bacon that Nia is adjusting.
That's right.
But like in book 1, like I really wanted it to feel like the Shire. Like this is a really beautiful world that we all kind of like. They're good and beautiful things that we all long for, and then to see that shattered, to see Glipwood overrun with fangs by the end of the book, you really feel the loss of it. But the only way to feel the loss of it is to spend time. And so in a 90-minute movie, you don't really have much time. In the Lord of the Rings movies, they were 16 hours each. And so you do feel like they spent time on the Shire, and that's one of the most delightful things about it. So I think if it was a series, that's one of the reasons I pushed for a series early on, was that we could really dig in and tell the big story, because it's a big story. It goes a lot of places.
That was one of the questions somebody posted about. In an adaptation, do you hope to keep the small moments, kind of some of the, like, of course, Poto taking the thwaps and dropping them into the neighbor's field and that kind of thing, and yeah.
Yeah, but then with one of the ideas that we had for the films was, if we made the first film and it worked and it made money, then we'd make the second film and the third film, and then because book 4 is so long, we'd make that two movies long. So, if we had bajillions of dollars and could do whatever we wanted, I think you could take your time and tell the full story in 5 movies or 5 seasons of a series. That's kind of my thing. What inspired the Toothy Cow? Good question. My mom grew up on a dairy farm. And so when we were kids, we would go to grandma's house and feed oranges to the cows at the line of the barbed wire fence. And I don't know if you guys have ever been up close to a cow, but if you look deep into its eye, you can see that there's just this void of evil, like a void of blackness that suggests evil. And so I imagined how terrifying a cow would be if they actually had fangs. So.
Pretty good.
Book. The answer is no. There will not be a fifth book. There is Wingfeather Tales, which is kind of a fifth book, and it gets into some really fun territory. It's a bunch of short stories written by me and other authors in the Wingfeather world, and there are some really beautiful reveals in some of those stories. So, but no, it is what it is. I have considered writing another series in the world of Ere We Are, but if I did, it would take place in another epic. Either thousands of years later or thousands of years before. I've thought about that, but I think I've got to write some other stuff first. When will the Monster in the Hollow's new book cover be revealed? I don't know, but soon. I think probably by summer they're going to reveal it. It's awesome. Book 4 is awesome.
Hey, Andrew, had another question that popped up about in animation. 2D animation versus 3D or CGI. And that was actually another one of the interesting discussions we had is animation. Some of you folks may know this, but animation is really expensive. The average feature animation you go see runs about $1 million per finished minute.
That's mind-blowing.
And so we didn't want to try to compete with that because there's a lot of limitations that come in with that. A lot of cooks in the kitchen, hands in the pot, blah, blah. And so we wanted to find a more economical way to bring some really cool animation to life. And so Keith Lango, who's a CG genius, had come up with some ideas for how you could do kind of a painterly look that looks kind of like 2D and has some of those abstract ideas, but uses CGI, which has a lot of benefits. So the characters are CGI in the short, and we like to carry that forward. And then the environments are actually 2D paintings. And so we do a lot of really cool tricks with that. In fact, there's more than a couple characters in the short film who are 2D entirely. They're not CG at all, which you can go kind of see if you can figure out who those are. But meaning that they're drawn in just a drawing, and then you kind of move the drawing around, right, to make them work. And we wanted to see if 2D characters with our 3D characters could all play together and actually work. All those things to try to help bring the production cost down a bit, but still be cool. Now, at the time we first made this, we had a lot of people saying, oh, that look of kind of not full CG, like, Zootopia or these big movies, people might not want to see. Thankfully, since then, Spider-Man Spider-Verse came out and kind of changed the game. Everyone went, oh, you don't have to just look like amazing. And I had the pleasure of working with DreamWorks Animation for a number of years and hanging, and those scientists in that business, it's astonishing what you can get done visually. But it's expensive, costs a lot of money. And so as independent storytellers and filmmakers, we knew that what could we do it differently. Thankfully, that movie, Spider-Verse, got really well received, and there's a couple coming after it that are going to have different looks. And so we'd like to carry that look forward. What we do on a series or on a movie would probably look a little different, but it was a test to kind of see how it would play. And every studio distributor we've visited with, anybody you can think of, we visited and talked to about the series and a movie option, kind of both paths. And every one of them visual, like, wow, this is the most beautiful thing we've seen. So people keep asking too, Andrew, about when are we going to see more? We got to see this first one. We can see more. We're working on it. It's an ongoing thing. One of the things we were super excited about was the books being released and these new awesome covers that look kind of like the art we'd want to do in the film or in the series. And so the books have been great. You guys have done such a great job of buying them and getting excited and telling friends about them. And so that's created a lot of activity. And so we're still working. It takes a long time. You hear a lot of people talk about they spend a number of years kind of treading and finding the right partners and the right people to be involved and all that kind of thing. And I just had a couple long meetings today working on it. So we're still working away.
Crazy. So I would say this to loop in Joe. When Joe held up those drawings, I felt this like 12-year-old kid in me, butterflies in my stomach. I love drawings, and I love visual art. I wanted to be. Some of you guys may not know this, but I like to draw. I'm not nearly as good as Aiden or Joe, but I'm probably better than Chris. And so, no, I've always loved it. And so the thought of making an animated film like where you could pause it and any frame would look like a painting.
Klaus.
Klaus is that way, and Klaus is marvelous, by the way. Go watch it on Netflix. But you can see that in the Wingfeather Saga. There's all these brush strokes that you can see, and there's like a little bit of there's a lot left to the imagination, and that's what I love about it. And so that leads me to this question that somebody asked. Joe, how long does it take to make one of those drawings?
The sketching process probably takes longer for me than the final art, because the final art is more of just muscle memory of getting it done. But I probably spend maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 hours sometimes on a sketch to make sure it's right. And then the process of final art usually takes me probably under 3 or 4 hours. If it's just like a spot, like if it's just a spot, like maybe like Photo and Oscar, that might have taken maybe 45 minutes to finalize that, but I probably spent 2 or 3 hours sketching it just to make sure everything felt right.
Yeah.
But there are some, there's like this guy here, that one probably, I likely spent 2 full days doing the final art on that one, because there's just so many little things, just that was one of those drawings that you kind of pick under a time frame that I have to get stuff done, kind of pick the illustrations in every book that I really want to shine. And doing the inside of books and crannies is not one you want to just rush through. It's the one that you want to stop and look at everything, and you want to see the ink wells and the bugs, and you want to see the little thwop that's been, there are a lot of little Easter eggs and images like that. Those are the ones you get to slow down and kind of do something special with. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So if we could make a film that captured that kind of gritty, imaginative vibe, then that would be my dream. Let me answer this question that's on the screen really quick before we move on to the next one. What position would a 4th prince or princess of an era hold? So a lot of people have asked that. If the High King is the second born, the firstborn is the throne warden, the third born is the song maiden. If it's a boy, it's a song master. And then if the 4th child is called a Lorwain, and that is the keeper of the history. They study the history, they write the history, and teach and carry on the history of the world or of an era. So everybody after the 3rd or 4th kid, from the 4th kid and under, they're all Lorwains. So there's your answer. And yes, there can be girl throne wardens. I'll just say that would be cool. Let me.
Hey, here's a little trivia piece. So there's a Fang named Brack who's in the short film, who is the one who stamps their thing and then laughs really funny. And I said, Andrew, who do we know that's got a really good, like, solid laugh? And he said, oh, I got a guy. He's my lighting designer when I go to the Ryman for Behold the Lamb of God. And I'll ask him if he'll come in the studio and laugh for us. That was the weirdest call ever.
Yeah, he nailed it. He burst out laughing when he goes, oh, 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 oh. He did his whole thing. So let me see. What other questions? You guys seeing any other questions?
Hey, so I'll just say Sky gets a lot of compliments for her vocals, and she should.
Yes, she does.
And so, yeah, she was so great. We pulled her in the studio. It was a bit of a rough studio, and said, hey, could you sing this? And she's like, oh, okay. Didn't have any of the normal support stuff we should have. And she just belted it out. And there was no fixing it, folks. She sounds that good. I will tell you, some people don't know exactly what she's singing, right? Because it's weird. So I will just encourage you to go watch this short film again and turn on the subtitles, because those were fun to make.
Oh,
they're all in there, and it's correct, actually. And then we actually have, if you haven't heard it, it's out there, I think Apple Music, Spotify, that kind of thing. But the Wingfeather Saga short film soundtrack. And it's got a couple versions of that song and fun things like that. I tried to get the lyrics included, and we couldn't do that. But Yeah, that's that.
Andrew, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I never actually asked you this, but probably my favorite thing, like weirdly enough, in the whole series is that Poto uses his leg bone as a weapon. And I'm just curious how you came up with the idea that he lost it to a dragon and then gets it back and he wields it. Like
I don't know. I just remember thinking it was a cool idea. There's a lot of that stuff that like early on, like I don't want to spoil things. Let me think how to not spoil anything.
Careful.
So things like Lily riding Nugget. There's a moment at the end when, like, who doesn't want to ride a dog? I think that would be the coolest thing in the world, to saddle a dog and ride one. But the idea that Lily, who can't walk without a crutch, is the one who has the dog that she can now ride. So her weakness becomes her strength. There's a couple things that happen, and I'm going to hint at them in book 4. For those of you guys who've read all the books, what Lily gets to ride in book 4. I remember having that idea while I was writing book 1, thinking, ooh, wouldn't that be cool if the one who can't walk without a crutch gets to do that? So there were, and so Poto, once I wrote Poto's backstory and I knew how he lost his leg, I was like, ooh, that leg bone still is out there somewhere. And his weapon. So that's a pretty huge hint for those of you guys who haven't read later on in the books, but you will find out.
Hey, so some folks have asked if you didn't get to see the short film when it started at 7. Yes, you can see it. It's if you want to watch it on your television, it's on Amazon, so that's kind of fun. But if you want to watch it on YouTube, it's there. And then on Facebook, it is on the Wingfeather Saga page. If you go look there, you'll find it. People have also asked about this T-shirt that I'm wearing. Yeah, we made these as part of the Kickstarter. They're really cool. They were they actually have all the kids illustrated, and it's really fun. And we made them, and Andrew's brother Pete, who helped us with all the getting these things out to all our Kickstarter backers, said, Chris, never do T-shirts. They're a nightmare. And I was like, oh, I love T-shirts. That'd be great. He's like, no, you won't. And he wasn't wrong. You never have the right size. That's all there is to it. You never have the right size. You think you have enough of these, enough of those, and you're always disappointing people because you don't have that size for some reason. So we made a run of these T-shirts. We do not have them anymore. And I don't know that I could compel Pete to ever do that again. There's also a question about cards. Are there any Wingfeather stock? There are. They're out of stock at the moment. I think they're getting them back in at the Rabbit Room, which is where a lot of this cool stuff is. And there's cool cards that Aiden got to help create that have each of our cool characters. And then inside the deck, there's also, and we thought about a game, but we don't have a game for it. But then there's also some blank ones, so you can make your one for yourself and play along. So yeah, there's some cool cards.
Really cool stuff.
Andrew, are we thinking about ever doing a video game?
Oh,
and here we are.
Somebody asked that question?
Somebody did. Yep.
Well, we thought about it, and there were reasons why it was a good idea. Which one of the big ones financially is if you, when like a lot of the same computery stuff. Chris, you can talk about it, but I'm speaking to the people like me who don't. I just know when you build a world in an animated movie, you can use the same tools that you would use when you're building a world in a video game. And so if we thought ahead and said, hey, let's make the movie with the same programming capability that we would make the game with, then we would have all of these assets already built, and we could inexpensively make a game. But then, because I read Wendell Berry and I care about putting technology where it belongs, I had some hesitations about like creating a game that would cause people to sit in front of their televisions for longer than we already do. And so I had some hesitations about it. So we went a little ways down the road of thinking, is there a way that we could create a game that would actually build community and not break it down? That was the trick. Find a way to make it so that you can only play when there are other people with you, or ways to like deepen the experience of the world or the story that would work on the imagination instead of just, hey, here's this cool hack and slash game with a bunch of fangs. I have zero interest in that. But that's way down the road.
Hey, some folks have asked about the thwaps and what sound our sound designer. So I texted our sound designer, and he just got back to me, and he said, yes, the sound for the thwaps was guinea pigs with some other rodents mixed in.
And didn't the person who asked the question said they sounded like guinea pigs? That's amazing.
Yeah, you got it right. That's right.
They must own a guinea pig.
Those are
Somebody
super
said,
fun.
Is Pete the Sock Man named after my brother? Yes, actually. My kids, who are 2 boys and a girl, who are the same age spread as the kids in the story, have a crazy Uncle Pete in real life. And I thought that would be pretty funny if the kids in my story also had a crazy Uncle Pete. The truth is, though, in both cases, they are much more than just crazy. They're also incredibly awesome.
Hey, so a couple people pop back about T-shirts, and there's some other things we made during the Kickstarter. There has been discussion about maybe making some of that stuff available before the books come out in the fall, the next round of 3 and 4. So maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, we got to wrap things up, y'all. Any other? Let me just see if there's any burning questions. Will I make a book of Janners? No. How did we come up with the title? Just came up with it. I can say that. Yeah, some people are asking if I'm going to keep reading. I don't know. I mean, if we were quarantined all year, I would happily keep reading, but we're just going to have to see what happens. But hopefully, we'll be able to finish book 2. I think I've seen a lot of questions go by, and now I can't.
Let me throw one other thing. So the Arachnid adaptation, I just realized I forgot this one. In the books, as you were reading along, and my daughter Charlotte's been listening and having a great time with you, but it talks about Tink, Kalmar being afraid of heights, and then in the short film, he's clearly not afraid of heights. That was one of those adaptations that, in the long view of as we got to know Tink and Cal and kind of his long journey, being afraid of heights didn't matter as much, and it was one of those changes we could make in here that was like, yeah, let's make that change and make him a little more daring. Yeah. So that was one of those little adjustments.
I remember thinking that would go a lot farther. Like the idea was that he's afraid of heights until he remembers who he is, and like when he hears the sea dragons, there's this thing that works on him, and he forgets that he's afraid. So that was important. One funny thing that happened in the script for the film, in working on the story, we've got a screenplay for a film that is just kind of a starting point. But in it, one of the things we wrestled with was when the kids go to the weapons chamber, the Janner and Tinker in the basement of Ankle Jelly Manor the first time, and then they leave all the weapons, they come back, and then later on when they're captured by the Fangs and Poto and Nia and everybody's in the jail, in the movie we were like, wait, wouldn't it be cool if Tink actually swiped a dagger from Ankle Jelly Manor without telling Janner? And when they're in the jail together, he's like, swoop, and then he's got a dagger and he's able to set everybody free. It's a great idea. It's totally something that Tink would do, but we didn't think about it until we were working on the movie. So when I was reading out loud last week, we got to that scene, and I was like, wait, why didn't Tink use a knife to free himself? He just said he did the bonds. So it's been so cool to see like how the story, there is canon. There's like the story that it is what it is. There's also like a tightening of the screws a little bit. Like it's like things are getting it's getting better. So like there are little names and dates type things that have been that were incorrect when I was writing the story. That Laura Hiddle, also known as Madam Seidler, who moderates the Wingfeather Saga forum, she is a genius and knows the books better than I do, literally, and has like spreadsheets of the dates and the epics and the book publication dates and the when this happened and when that happened, and she helped us like tighten up all of that stuff in the movie. So this whole process between Joe's drawings, working on the film with Chris, and then republishing the books with Nicholas's artwork, the progression has been, everything has been feeding into everything else in the coolest way. And so I'm super thankful. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Joe.
Hey, I have one more special guest real quickly.
Yeah. Hey,
so this is Charlotte. And she was the voice of little Lily. Not the singing voice.
Hey, Charlotte, will you say, I think it's a song Mama taught me.
I think it's a song Mama taught me.
Oh, that's amazing. You have the cutest voice. I love it. It's so good. It's good to see you.
What was your favorite part about being Lily's voice?
So me and my brother were both on the show, and so we'd like take turns from coloring and going into the studio, and that was probably my favorite part because it was just like really funny. And I had no idea what was going on, so I was just like, I'm here, and yeah.
Yeah, well, so she's being very kind because she really didn't know what was going on, meaning we did a lot of the recording early on, and it was just really relaxed in my closet in our bedroom because it's very quiet in there. And like, hey guys, come in the room. I need to record some things with you. And we do some stuff with it, you know. And Charlotte, what's interesting is as she was recording it until now, she doesn't know the story. So she's been going through Edge of the Dark Sea with you. And so like every time we would do something in the short film, she's like, "Whoop, spoiler."
That's amazing. That's so great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte. You did a great job.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good job, kiddo.
Don't grow up too fast so that by the time we make the movie, maybe you can do Lily again.
Yeah.
Right, your voice hasn't changed too much. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you, everybody. Somebody asked really quick. Somebody said they named their 4-year-old. They named their kid Janner. He's now 4 years old and wanted to know where I got the name. I don't remember. I have racked my brain to try to figure out. Did I make the name up? I think I made it up. And then later I found out that it was a name, a Scandinavian name. A lot of the names are Scandinavian inspired. But I've met 3 or 4 kids named Janner, and I've met a Kalmar, and I just found out that there's an Artham in the world now. Somebody emailed me saying that they named their baby Artham, which is just amazing. I love it.
Hey, Andrew, somebody asked, can you read the Wingfeather tales without spoiling the other books?
No, you cannot read that. You have to read fast.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not.
Yeah,
don't do it.
You would be confused, but it would also spoil a lot of things. There's a lot of spoilers in this story.
There is. It really is.
So, it's one of the reasons it's hard to talk about when people ask me what the book is about. I kind of stutter over it because I'm like, ooh, I don't know how to tell you without spoiling these big.
Hey, so I got to tell that story. So we had our very first meeting after making the short film. It was a big deal, or maybe just in the process of making it. We were at Amazon Studios, Andrew and myself and Mr. Tom Owens, and we were sitting down to tell him. And the guy asked, "So tell me, what is Wingfeather Saga about?" And Andrew froze. It was like,
I had no idea what to say. Like, well, it's a story, man. It's
a lot of things. It's a lot of things.
Stuff in it. Now will you give us a bunch of money to make a film?
I just saw that same exact recently, Andrew, like about a month ago. Yeah, he's great.
Oh, that's great.
Look at that.
There's a baby Kalmar. Amazing. Man, you guys are great. I could do this all night long, but I'm sure people have got to go to bed. Hey, Joe, thank you so much for being an amazing dude and for.
Good to see you, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey, what were you grabbing? Were you grabbing something to show?
Well, I was just going to say, if anybody wanted to jump ahead and read book 4, but they don't want to spoil anything, you can read the Scandinavian one. You're definitely not going to understand a single word in it.
That is the Norway version. The
Norway version. So you'll be in good shape if you read that version of book 4.
So it's been translated into Swedish and Norwegian. Cool. They've done the first 2 books in Swedish and all of the books in Norway, which is amazing. They love fantasy up there. It's kind of in their blood. All the Norse mythology, and Tolkien is a big deal up there. It's not nerdy to be a Tolkien fan in Scandinavia, from what I found. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. So don't forget, you guys, 2 things. First thing is a small thing, and that is that Monday night, Easter Monday, we're going to start at 7 o'clock reading book 2. And the second thing is, yes, North or be eaten. The second thing is, don't forget it's Holy Week. Remember, soak it up and walk the road to the crucifixion and then the resurrection on Sunday. Don't forget about that. It's a big deal, and it's actually at the heart of what the Wingfeather Saga is about. So I hope you guys will remember that this week. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.